I'd like to introduce all of you to the Holy Bibles of Christianities. Now, the reason why I say Bibles is because the word Bible is not just in reference to one thing. There's not just one Holy Bible. There are multiple Holy Bibles, and they belong to not just one Christianity, but multiple Christianities. So that's what we want to go through here, and as you can see on your screen, the information that we will be looking at is found on a Wikipedia page called Biblical Canon. So wikipedia.org/wiki/biblical_canon. And there's footnotes within what we're going to look at that you guys can all check out. And you can just come to this page yourself and follow the links, go different places, and look up things on these same topics elsewhere on the internet. So the basic idea is so many of us have only been aware of the tradition within which we have been raised, and maybe we're aware of other traditions out there, but we don't realize how different they are. So I'm assuming that most Christians watching this video come from within the Western tradition of Christianity. That includes Protestant and Catholic. Now, most people within the Western tradition, especially if you live in the West, most people are only aware of Western Christianity. So people think, well, there's Protestantism and there's Catholicism, but people don't realize that that's only the two primary groups within the Western tradition of Christianity. And there's also, as you see on the screen, the Eastern Orthodox tradition, the Oriental Orthodox tradition, and the Assyrian Eastern tradition. And within each tradition, there are a number of different groups. So Western has Protestant and Roman Catholic. Within the Eastern Orthodox tradition, we have the Greek Orthodox, the Slavonic Orthodox, and the Georgian Orthodox. Within the Oriental Orthodox tradition, we have the Armenian Apostolic, the Syriac Orthodox, the Coptic Orthodox, and the Orthodox Tewahedo. I want to pronounce it right. It's Tewahedo, or Tewahedo. That's the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which I personally, of course, find easier to say. And then within the Assyrian Eastern tradition, you have the Assyrian Church of the East. Now, this does not actually represent all of Christianity today. There are other groups of Christians which do not fall within these categories, and they have different Bibles, different scripture canons. And keep in mind also that what you see in front of you is only a representation of modern Christianities. There were many, many other ancient Christianities which have now passed out of history. But if you go back into the 4th century, and to the 3rd century, and into the 2nd century, there were many other Christianities, and there was huge diversity of opinion and doctrine, many various theologies, and very different scripture canons. So a scripture canon is a list or collection of writings which are considered to be scriptural or inspired and authoritative by a particular community. So most people within the Protestant churches have a 66-book canon, and when you say Bible or Holy Bible, well, that's what comes to mind. Now, what you might not realize is that if you were a member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and you hear someone say Bible, or at least the Ethiopic equivalent of the word Bible, a very different collection of books comes into your mind. There's more books than is in the Protestant Bible. And by the way, the Protestant Bible is not the Bible with the least amount of books in it. But each of these different groups of Christianity even today, have different Bibles. So this isn't just a translation. This isn't multiple different translations. Yes, there are hundreds, and I'm sure, especially considering the multitude of languages, there are thousands of Bible translations. But this isn't what we're talking about in this video. We're talking about different Bibles, different collections of books. The word Bible actually comes from biblia, which means library. It's not talking about just one book. It's a library or a collection of books. So within modern Christianity, all sects or all different Christian traditions except the first 5 books that are in the Protestant Bible. And I believe that in all of these various churches, these first 5 are actually the first 5, as in it goes in that order. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. All modern groups of Christians except those first 5 books. That, by the way, was not the case in ancient Christianity. In the 2nd century, a very popular form of Christianity was called Marcionism, or it's what we've referred to today as Marcionism, or Marcionite Christianity. It was very, very popular. You know, it may have even been that more than half of professed Christians at the time considered themselves Marcionites. And Marcion was the first person that we have on record to actually list out a collection of scripture as a canon within Christianity. And he did not have any of the books of the Old Testament in his canon. It was actually a collection of 10 of the letters of Paul and a version of the Gospel of Luke. That was the canon. So that's a large portion of Christianity, and they had a very different canon. So I may make reference to some of the things in the ancient churches as we go on, and even some of the footnotes here have a lot of information about the ancient acceptance or rejection of certain of these books within the past history of these various churches. It's hard to really qualify them or classify them as churches because the Protestant church isn't just one church, it's many churches. Okay, so from Genesis to 2nd Chronicles, all groups of modern Christianity, at least represented here, accept those writings. But notice here, once you get to the prayer of Manasseh, it's different. So here, the prayer of Manasseh, it's not accepted within Protestantism as part of the canon. It's considered apocrypha. So let's look at this footnote. The English Apocrypha includes the prayer of Manasseh, 1st and 2nd Esdras, the additions to Esther, Tobit, Judith, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, the Book of Wisdom, Sirach, Baruch, the letter of Jeremiah, and the additions to Daniel. The Lutheran Apocrypha omits from this list 1st and 2nd Esdras. Some Protestant Bibles include 3 Maccabees, or 3rd Maccabees, as part of the Apocrypha. However, many churches within Protestantism, as it is presented here, reject the Apocrypha, do not consider it useful, and do not include it in their Bibles. Now, of course, that was different in the Protestantism of 400 years ago, which maybe that's a topic for another video. Within Roman Catholicism, the prayer of Manasseh is not included, but it is in some manuscripts. So within the Roman Catholic tradition, there are scripture manuscripts that include the prayer of Manasseh, which shows that at the time of the compiling of those manuscripts, the prayer of Manasseh was accepted. Now, notice, moving on to the other forms of Christianity, Eastern Orthodox Christianity. It's actually included. Yes, we have the prayer of Manasseh as part of the Odes of Solomon for a number of these writings. The Odes of Solomon, by the way, is a very important text that was accepted by many, many, many Christians for a long time. And look, the rest of Christianity has yes, and for some of them it's questionable as to do they really consider it as inspired and authoritative as some of these other books. In the rest of the versions of Christianity, other than the Western tradition, it seems to be that canon is less defined. There's a less definitive border between canon and non-canon. But it's interesting seeing, okay, yes, these writings are accepted. Some of them are accepted in certain traditions, but not in others. So the question is, if you happened to be born and raised in any of these groups of Christianity other than the Western tradition, would you accept the prayer of Manasseh? Well, you probably would, right? Because that's what they accept. Now, to continue on, we have Ezra and Nehemiah, which are also known as 1st Ezra, 2nd Ezra, or the Ezra writings from 1st to 4th Ezra. Actually, there's a number of different names. It's actually somewhat confusing. There's Esdras, 1st Esdras, 2nd Esdras, also known as 3rd Ezra and 4th Ezra. Again, like I said, the names are not consistent across the board. So 1st Esdras is not actually accepted in Protestantism. It's considered Apocrypha, and in Roman Catholicism, it's not accepted as canon either, but it is included in some manuscripts. But notice, the Eastern tradition actually accepts 1st Esdras, or 3rd Ezra is the other name. So it's accepted, and 2nd Ezra, 3rd Ezra, and 3rd Maccabees are included in Bibles and have an elevated status within the Armenian scriptural tradition, but are considered extra-canonical. And then, of course, in the Oriental tradition, you have no, but included in some manuscripts, the Ethiopic Church and the Assyrian Church of the East. Well, the Ethiopic Church has 1st Esdras, but the Assyrian Church does not. You have somewhat of a similar picture for 2nd Esdras or 4th Ezra. No in Protestantism, not really in Roman Catholicism, though it's included in some manuscripts. And by the way, this is a little bit complicated because in Protestantism it's not entirely consistent. This is just the general view, but it's not to say that everyone within these traditions either rejected or accepted certain of these books. For instance, Martin Luther rejected